is punch him in the mouth. One of the first times that I had a fight, I was about 11 years old. I was going to PS 100. And there was another young boy named William. We used to call him Bill. He had moved from Brownsville to Coney Island. And they told me, said, "No, you got to fight him, man. You got to kick his behind." And I didn't want to fight, but my friends told me that I had to fight him. And me and Bill had a knockdown, drag out fight. I busted his lip. He busted parts of my eye. And now today, me and Bill are the best of friends. But I didn't want to fight, but I was encouraged to commit violence. It wasn't Ab. Me and Ab grew up together. We saw a lot of violence in Coney Island. But what is the root cause of violence? Why do people commit violence? Why? Because any one of us can commit an act of violence. Under the right circumstances, we could kill. We can do this here. Because there's something deep inside the recessives of your brain that causes you to react to things. It causes you to respond to certain things. And this is why I made the statement, we are always saying that our children are violent. But then when they came into this world, violence was already here. So where did they learn to respond to violence? They learned it from us. Because a lot of times we don't want to talk about or sit down and resolve a problem. And this is what the brothers and sisters in Southeast Queens, Erica Ford and them, they have a program called Life Camp. The brothers in East New York with Andre Mitchell have Man Up. They want to sit down and resolve problems that you may have with each other. There's a statement that is made, bury the beef. If you got a beef, if you got a problem with someone else, you need to sit down. This is what they did in Compton, in California. They said, listen, we have to bury those differences that we have. In my house, if my children or my grandchildren have a problem with each other, no one goes to sleep that night until we solve the problem. Until we talked out what the situation was, what brought about the differences. No one goes to sleep until we have solved that issue, so there won't be any violence. America was built on violence. The United States that we know today came about through the Revolutionary War. The South and the North fought against each other, and hundreds and thousands of people died. So there's a history of violence in this country. But how do you solve violence? First of all, you have to find out why violence happens. Why do people resort to violence? First of all, they don't think about a situation. They will immediately respond to something that happens in their life. And they are not taught, they're not trained, they're not coached on how to sit down and resolve a problem that happens between two people. And this is why I said we have to be the examples. Because our young people, they watch us, they listen to us, they learn from how we respond to things. The first thing a person would say, if you do something to me, I'm going to get my gun. But how come you not sitting down with that person and say, listen, what is the problem? Because it is the nature of every species. It is the nature of each individual, even down to a rat or a roach, to survive. We live in a world where people want to live, they want to live equally, they want to feel comfortable. You want to go to bed at night feeling that there's no one that's going to hurt you, and there are other people that feel the same way. Violence is not limited to games. They're not. Violence starts in the home. And as I said earlier, you see Bugs Bunny a cartoon character, or you see Wile E. Coyote and the bird that he's chasing all the time. Children are watching that, and you see them blowing up things, shooting things, killing each other. We see this every day. There's something deep, deep in the pathology of our consciousness that we have to begin to examine why violence happens. And it has to start in the home, where we teach and train our children to think. And some of us have done things that later on we said, man, if I would have done this, if I would have done that, maybe I wouldn't be in the situation today. Maybe the friend of mine wouldn't be dead. When you put a gun in someone's hand, that's a false sense of power. They want to use it. And there are people who don't have jobs. There are people who do not have a good relationship with their wife or their child. I'm a parole officer. I work in an area called Brownsville. They call it the Ville. They have a saying, I'm from the Ville, I never ran, and I never will. That very statement that tells you that there's something that they feel that they don't want to fear anybody. So we have to begin to change the very thinking of people. And I walk to Brownsville, I'm not afraid. Because I know that I have not treated anybody there where they would have to hurt me. The causes of violence has to be dealt with. And it's always going to be violent things happening. But how do we cope with it? How do we deal with it? We have to be the example. We have to set solutions. If it's in your home, you have to sit down with somebody. If you can't deal with the home, then you have to go to your school and talk to the counselors. If it's happening in the schools, you have to go to your spiritual advisors, because that's one of the things that's lacking. There's a lot of spiritual understanding and spiritual development. Violence is not limited to gangs, it's not limited to anyone, because we are all capable. But you have to think before you do anything. And you have to understand what it is that causes you to respond in a violent way. We can talk about this. There are organizations, there are programs, there are things that you can do to help. But you have to first know that you're capable of responding violently, but you have to understand that you have to begin to cope with those things that are around you. People don't have jobs, people don't have a place to live, and you get frustrated, and you respond sometimes in the emotional way that you have to understand. I came into an organization that I was a part of for many, many years. And if you lifted your hand, it was against the very policy in the nation that I was a part of, the Nation of Islam. If you even thought about putting your hand on a brother, that was unheard of. That was a violation of the very organization that we belong to, and it was a violation against the very continent or the very policy of the nation. You didn't put your hand on anybody. Nobody. That was a taboo. That was off limits. You didn't do that. You didn't hurt your brother. And we all believed in that. And if one person saw you even doing that, this is why I encourage the men. If the men in this community, whether it's in Brownsville, Coney Island, East New York, if just a segment of the men stood up, I guarantee you, overnight, a lot of this violence would cease. Because our young children are looking for guidance. I was on the train one day when some young people were on the train. They were just totally out of control. Everybody was getting off the train. People was afraid. And it was big. There were men 6 feet tall, 250 pounds. They were getting off the train, and there were some young girls that were holding the door, and they were very, very intimidating. And I said, hold up! I said, wait a minute. I said, we got to go